Today I'm going to tell you about what happened to me when I visited a haunted wood in my hometown that is situated in the United Kingdom. The legend of these woods has been told to me by my grandmother and many others. The legend goes that a young woman that was extremely beautiful and desired by many men of the local area was accused of being a witch or a strange herbalist. However, this changes depending on the teller of the story. She lived alone in the woods for many years, and rumours spread about her around the village about her connection to demonic spirits and rituals that sustained her beauty. The small wooden structure of where she lived was built by unknown hands. However, there is no records to show it ever being built, and even though it existed in the ruined form of where it stands now, nobody could tell you who built it. The local men tried many times to woo this woman with flowers and many other different gestures. However, each attempt failed, and the men became extremely frustrated with her and decided that in their heads that they couldn't woo the woman, they were going to take what they wanted by force. The men arrived at the forest on the night of Halloween and encountered the woman in her home sleeping. When the men was finished, they knew they couldn't allow her to live, as punishment for them would be death by hanging from the neck. So the men pulled out a sharp object and sliced the woman's throat ear to ear, and allowed her to bleed out onto her bed and floor. And with her dying breath she cursed the land and the men and even their families for all eternity. Once her last breath was gone, the men took their time dismembering the body and concealing each piece of her in each corner of the woods. However, her head was never found, even to this day. Now that I have given you this small insight of what happened in the legend, I am now going to tell you what happened to me as my experience of visiting the White Wall in my hometown. I was 16 years old, and myself and my two friends wanted to do something on Halloween night. We wasn't the most popular of people in our school, so most of the parties were shut off to us. However, my friend Brett threw out the idea of going to the White Wall. We all laughed at this proposition as no one believed the legend of the witch, and agreed to meet up later that night. As I walked home from school, I felt a weird sensation hit me, making me feel like eyes were upon me, and caused me to turn round and scan my surroundings. Myself and the others met up about 10 p.m. on Halloween night, and slowly made our way into the woods. Carl had brought some torches so that we may see in the darkness. We slowly walked into the woods, as they are very dense, and at night you could get easily lost or hurt. But after a short while of walking, we kept hearing creaks and cracks and sounds of walking and running from all around us. However, in the dense brush of the woods off the track, these actions were impossible, as there is thorn bushes and stumps of trees and fallen logs that were littered the area and would cause you some harm. So doing these actions were near impossible. After a while of walking and hearing these sounds, and feeling quite spooked out, we would call it, we arrived at the White Wall. The White Wall was nothing more than a small brick structure that has a slight painted surface that is in a small clearing in the woods. Carl and Brett were talking about the legend, attempting to creep me out about it. However, after a few moments, we started to hear more movement around us, as a sweet aroma filled the air. The sweet aroma soon floated around us for a short while, as we looked at each other confused. However, the scent was replaced with a vulgar and disgusting smell like rotting meat that even turned my stomach slightly. as Brett just stared into the part of the clearing and had even gone drip white as he kept whispering slowly over and over, "It's over there." Myself and Carl looked to where he was staring and noticed nothing. Carl turned his back to Brett and smiled as he walked over to the wall and began to mock the witch and her legend as he sat on the wall itself, as he spoke out in a loud vocal tone, "If you are here, show me. Do something to make me believe." As Carl laughed, I shook my head in annoyance. However, that annoyance was quickly replaced with worry, as Carl's eyes was as wide as dinner plates as he held his arm, as 2 scratches was clearly seen down the forearm of his arm. As I stared at it, all he could do was stare into the part of the woods and began muttering something I couldn't understand. Brett, however, has snapped from his trance and began to tell us that it's time to get out of here. As I looked at my watch and noticed that it was actually midnight, I grabbed Carl's arm and began to hear the sounds of chains in the air. When I took to look at Brett, he had vanished and left me and Carl stood at the wall as the sound of chains became louder and louder until Carl couldn't handle it anymore and turned on his heels and ran down the path screaming after Brett. I stood there looking around as I was getting quite annoyed, thinking that somebody was playing a cruel Halloween prank on us. Within moments the temperature fell around me drastically and my breath became visible. As I scanned the clearing, I felt a presence watching me with an intense feeling of hatred. With that feeling I looked around and began to back up slowly, never taking my eyes from the wall and the surrounding darkness. As if I did, in my mind I would be attacked by a force I couldn't see. As my back hit a tree, I saw a woman stood at the wall where he was sat, with a gaze that I will never forget. Her gaze buried into my soul and made me feel fear for my life, as her clothes were tatty with dark stains around her collar and tears littering her dress. As my heart beat in my throat, I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. This lasted what seemed an age. However, in retrospect, it only lasted a few moments. Once I regained control over my muscles again, I began to run. I ran down the path, narrowly missing tree after tree, as I could hear the sounds of behind me as the sense of dread intensifies. Nearing the end of the woods, I built up the courage to turn around slightly as I ran, only to see the woman stood a few trees back with that same hateful gaze as she ripped her hand down the tree. After a short while, I burst from the woods into the dimly lit streets as Brett and Carl were stood there. I exploded into anger and punched Brett directly in the face, and chewed out Carl as they both left me down there alone. Carl and Brett apologized and tried to reason with me, however I was not having any of it, as I don't know if this was a sick prank, I told them, but we need to leave. However, within moments of me saying that, a searing pain hit my arm and I noticed that my arm was covered in streaks of blood. And when I lifted my shirt, I saw my arm was cut in a circle pattern that cannot be done by anything within them woods. I didn't even think it was done naturally. However, we decided we had to head home separately due to the fact that we didn't want anyone to know where we was. After that night, I swear I will never go back into them woods at night, and to this day I still have nightmares about that gaze. It still terrifies me when I think of them woods at night, even around Halloween. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed recording the events. So, please like, subscribe, and comment in the section below if you've had any ghostly encounters in any sort of urban area. Doesn't have to be woods, can be anywhere. This is Kindarous. Sleep tight.